Imagine waking up one day and realizing that every decision you have ever made, every desire, every fear, every belief was never truly your own. That the choices you thought were yours were, in fact, carefully orchestrated by forces unseen, using psychological tricks so subtle that you never even question them. What if I told you that your mind has been programmed since birth? That the way you see the world, the way you respond to emotions, even the way you define success and failure has been shaped by hidden psychological forces working in the shadows? This is not science fiction. This is not conspiracy. This is the dark reality of psychology, the same principles used by the world's most powerful individuals to manipulate, control, and manifest their desires effortlessly. But here is the real secret. Once you understand these psychological forces, you can turn them in your favor. You can reprogram your own mind, reshape your reality, and manifest anything you desire. The question is, are you ready to learn what has been kept from you all this time? From the moment we are born, we are surrounded by invisible forces, beliefs passed down through generations, unspoken rules that dictate our actions, and psychological triggers designed to shape our decisions without us ever realizing it. These forces control everything: how we think, what we desire, and even how we perceive reality itself. But here is the unsettling truth. The people who understand these forces, the ones who have mastered the art of dark psychology, do not just follow the rules of reality, they bend them. They manifest their desires not by chance, but by understanding the hidden mechanics of the mind. Take, for example, the legendary case of Napoleon Bonaparte. History remembers him as one of the greatest military minds, but what most people do not know is that his success was not just a result of strategy or brute force. It was psychological warfare at its finest. Napoleon understood persuasion, illusion, and the power of belief. He convinced an entire nation that he was invincible, so much so that even his enemies hesitated before facing him in battle. His victories were not won on the battlefield. They were won in the minds of those who stood against him. This is the power of dark psychology. It is not just about manipulation. It is about influence, control, and most importantly, unlocking the hidden potential of your own mind. But why is this knowledge hidden? Why is it that only a select few understand these secrets while the rest remain blind? The answer is simple: power. Those who control the world, whether in business, politics, or media, do not want the masses to understand how influence truly works. They thrive on ignorance, using psychological tactics to guide the thoughts and actions of billions without resistance. But here is where things take a turn. Because once you understand these tricks, you are no longer a pawn in someone else's game. You become the one who controls the board. You begin to see the world not as it is presented to you, but as it truly is: a system of beliefs and perceptions that can be rewritten. And that is exactly what you are about to learn. In the next sections, we will uncover the hidden truths about dark psychology, explore how these tactics are used in everyday life, and most importantly, show you how to harness them to manifest anything you desire. The question is, are you ready to see the world as it really is? Most people go through life believing they are in control of their thoughts, their desires, and their decisions. But the reality is far more unsettling. The way we think is not a product of free will. It is a carefully crafted illusion shaped by society, culture, and most importantly, psychology. Take, for example, the illusion of choice. When you walk into a store and pick up a product, do you really believe it was your decision? Or was it influenced by strategic product placement, color psychology, and subconscious triggers designed to make you choose exactly what the store wanted you to? Studies show that simply placing an item at eye level can increase its sales by over 30%. That is not a coincidence. It is manipulation in its purest form. But this is just the surface. The real question is, who benefits from keeping people unaware of these psychological tricks? The answer lies in those who hold power. Governments, corporations, media conglomerates, they all use the same principles of dark psychology to control perception. The way news is framed, the way political campaigns are structured, even the way entertainment is designed, all of it subtly programs people to think and behave in specific ways. A chilling example of this can be found in the Milgram experiment, a psychological study that revealed just how easily people can be manipulated into harming others simply by being given the right psychological cues. Participants were instructed to administer electric shocks to another person, and despite hearing screams of pain, the majority continued simply because an authority figure told them to. This study exposed a terrifying truth. People are far more susceptible to control than they realize. The lesson here is simple. If you do not understand how psychology shapes your decisions, then you are being controlled by those who do. But once you learn to recognize these hidden influences, you can break free from them. You can reclaim your mind, reshape your beliefs, and begin to manifest your reality, not as a victim of psychological conditioning, but as its master. And that brings us to the next step: understanding how these dark psychology techniques are actively being used in everyday life. Because the more you recognize them, the more power you have over your own own mind. Now that you understand how hidden psychological forces shape our decisions, let us dive deeper into how these tactics are actively being used around you, often without you even realizing it. From marketing to politics to personal relationships, dark psychology is everywhere, silently influencing the way we think, feel, and behave. Take the scarcity principle, for example. Have you ever noticed how online stores use countdown timers, phrases like only 2 left in stock or limited time offers to pressure you into buying? This is not just a marketing trick, it is psychological warfare. The fear of missing out, FOMO, is a deeply ingrained survival instinct, and businesses exploit this by making you believe that if you do not act now, you will lose something valuable. And then there is social proof, one of the most powerful psychological tools ever discovered. Why do you trust a product with thousands of positive reviews, even if you have never heard of the brand? Why do you feel drawn to a crowded restaurant rather than an empty one? Because your brain is wired to follow the crowd. People assume that if others are doing something, it must be the right choice. This is why influencers are paid millions to endorse products, because their perceived authority influences people on a subconscious level. But dark psychology goes beyond business. It extends into the world of politics and media. Consider framing, a technique used by news outlets and politicians to control perception. The same event can be described in completely different ways to manipulate emotions. A protest can be framed as a fight for justice or a violent uprising, depending on the narrative that those in power want to push. The facts remain the same, but the way they are presented changes how people react. And then we have gaslighting, a tactic used in toxic relationships and social manipulation. This psychological trick makes the victim question their own reality, memory, or perception. A manipulative partner might say, "I never said that," or "You are overreacting," even when you clearly remember what happened. Over time, this subtle form of mind control makes the victim doubt themselves, giving the manipulator complete control over their thoughts and emotions. The scariest part? These techniques work because they target the subconscious mind, bypassing logic and reasoning. And unless you recognize them, you are vulnerable to their effects. But here is the good news. Once you see through these tactics, they lose their power over you. More than that, you can use them to your advantage. And that brings us to the next critical concept, the psychology of power. Because the ones who truly control their reality are not just aware of these techniques, they use them strategically to shape their world. Power is not just about strength, intelligence, or wealth. True power lies in understanding how the human mind works, how people think, what they fear, and what drives their decisions. The most influential people in history have not just controlled resources, they have controlled perception. They have used psychological tactics to gain loyalty, silence opposition, and manifest their desires into reality. One of the most powerful psychological strategies is the law of perception. The idea that reality is not objective, but is shaped by how people see it. This is why leaders, brands, and influencers craft their public image with extreme precision. Steve Jobs, for example, did not just sell computers. He sold an identity, a vision of innovation and exclusivity. His mastery of perception turned Apple into a global phenomenon, not because of its technology alone, but because of how people perceived its brand. Then there is the art of authority. Studies show that people naturally obey those they perceive as powerful, whether through confidence, knowledge, or status. The infamous Stanford prison experiment demonstrated how quickly people submit to authority, even when that authority is artificially created. In the experiment, ordinary participants were assigned the roles of guards and prisoners. Within days, those in the guard role began to exhibit extreme dominance, while those playing prisoners became submissive and fearful. The experiment proved a chilling truth. The illusion of power can be just as effective as real power. So how do you use this knowledge in your own life? The first step is mastering the power of presence. People with true influence control the energy in a room. They speak deliberately, they move with confidence, and they understand the power of silence. A well-placed pause in a conversation can be more commanding than 1,000 words. Next is the power of scarcity. People do not value what is easily available. They chase what feels rare. This is why luxury brands limit supply, why high-status individuals do not seek approval, and why those who are selective with their time command more respect. When you position yourself as something rare and difficult to obtain, people instinctively see you as more valuable. But the most critical skill of all is emotional detachment. The moment you become reactive, whether to criticism, rejection, or praise, you hand over control to someone else. The truly powerful remain unshaken. They do not seek validation, nor do they let emotions dictate their decisions. They observe, they calculate, and they act only when it benefits them. Mastering these principles does not just make you immune to manipulation, it puts you in control. And once you have this control, you can begin to reshape your own mind, unlocking the ability to manifest anything you desire. Which brings us to the final transformation, learning how to reprogram your mind for ultimate success. Now that you understand how dark psychology psychology shapes the world, the next step is the most important, taking control of your own mind. Because the truth is, if you do not program your mind, someone else will. The first step to mental reprogramming is awareness. Most people go through life on autopilot, reacting to emotions, external pressures, and subconscious conditioning without questioning why. But powerful individuals do not react, they observe. They step back and analyze their thoughts, asking, is this belief truly mine, or was it planted in my mind by someone else? A simple yet powerful exercise is thought auditing. Whenever you feel a strong emotion or desire, pause. Ask yourself, where did this thought come from? Is it the result of a past experience, social conditioning, or someone else's influence? The moment you become aware of how thoughts are shaped, they lose their hold over you. Next is cognitive reframing, a psychological technique used by the world's most resilient minds. Instead of seeing obstacles as threats, powerful individuals reframe them as opportunities. Instead of saying, I failed, they say, I learned. Instead of thinking, I am not good enough, they think, I am in the process of mastering this skill. This shift in perception does not just change your mindset, it rewires your brain to seek solutions instead of problems. But awareness alone is not enough. To truly manifest what you desire, you must master mental programming techniques, the same principles used in hypnosis, military training, and elite psychological conditioning. One of the most effective methods is autosuggestion, a technique once used by Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich. The idea is simple. When a thought is repeated with enough conviction, the subconscious mind accepts it as truth. This is why affirmations work, not because they are magic, but because the brain cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality when a belief is reinforced with emotion. Then there is the law of assumption, a principle taught by Neville Goddard, which states that reality bends to your dominant assumptions. If you assume yourself to be weak, life will present you with proof of your weakness. But if you assume yourself to be powerful, the world will begin to align with that belief. This is why high-status individuals carry themselves with unshakable confidence. They assume power before they even have it. And because they assume it, they attract it. But the most advanced form of mental reprogramming is emotional control. When you master your emotions, you master your reality. This does not mean suppressing emotions. It means using them as fuel. Anger can be turned into determination, fear into focus, pain into power. The key is to shift from being controlled by emotions to using emotions as tools to propel yourself forward. When you combine these principles, awareness, cognitive reframing, mental programming, and emotional control, you unlock a level of power that few ever achieve. You become immune to manipulation. You take control of your reality. And most importantly, you gain the ability to manifest anything you desire, not through luck, but through the mastery of your own mind. But before we conclude, there is one last truth you must face, one that will shift your entire perception of reality. Everything you have learned so far leads to one final realization. You have been living in a psychological illusion your entire life. From the moment you were born, your mind was shaped by forces you never questioned. The beliefs you hold, the fears that control you, the goals you chase, how much of it was truly your choice, and how much of it was carefully programmed into you by your environment, your culture, and those who understood the power of psychology before you did. But here's the shocking truth. Reality itself is malleable. The limits you perceive are not real. They are mental constructs. The people who manifest their desires do not do so because they are lucky or special. They do it because they understand one secret. The mind does not differentiate between imagination and reality. Take a moment to let that sink in. Scientific studies on neuroplasticity prove that the brain physically rewires itself based on dominant thoughts and repeated experiences. Olympic athletes visualize their victories in detail before they ever step onto the field. Billionaires condition their minds to expect success before they ever make their first million. The world's most powerful people do not wait for external validation. They assume the reality they want, and the world adjusts accordingly. So ask yourself, what have you been assuming about your own life? Have you been operating under the assumption that you are limited, powerless, or stuck? If so, then that is the reality you have unconsciously created. But here is the good news. The moment you wake up to this truth, you are no longer a prisoner of your past conditioning. You now hold the key to breaking free. The question is, what will you do with this power? Because now, the choice is truly yours. You have now seen the hidden forces that shape reality, the dark psychology tricks that control minds, influence decisions, and create power. You understand how people use these techniques in marketing, politics, and personal relationships. You have learned how to recognize and defend yourself against manipulation. And most importantly, you now know how to reprogram your own mind to manifest anything you desire. But knowledge alone is not enough. Power belongs to those who apply it. Most people will hear this information, feel inspired for a moment, and then go back to their old patterns, trapped in the illusion they now recognize. But a few, the ones who truly grasp this knowledge, will use it to change their lives forever. So which one will you be? If you have made it this far, you already know the answer. The fact fact that you are still here means you are ready to take control of your reality. You are ready to stop being manipulated and start shaping the world around you. Here is your first step. Start applying what you have learned today. Begin by observing. Watch how these psychological tactics play out in real life. Notice the manipulation in advertisements, conversations, and media narratives. Once you see it, you can no longer be controlled by it. And then take it a step further. Start reprogramming your own mind. Change your assumptions. Speak and move with authority. Control your emotions instead of letting them control you. And most importantly, act as if the life you desire is already yours. Because the moment you truly believe it, the world will conspire to make it real. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever noticed these dark psychology tricks being used on you? Have you ever used them yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us create a discussion that forces people to question their reality. And if you found this knowledge valuable, do not keep it to yourself. Share it, like the video, and subscribe for more hidden truths that most people will never uncover. Because this is just the beginning.